Alright, so this is What If Callum from Dragon Prince, sorry, was, well, Kryptonian. Now I've only done one other What If based off this TV show that's on Netflix. Basically, I've done What If Callum Had the Omnitrix. I'm still doing that. But also, guys, let's get into it. And I'm actually going to be explaining a little bit more things. Now, last time I did upload or post something on my commentary saying about like how I'm gonna be using my old phone to upload 2 or 3 videos for a couple days. So, but basically, guys, now I actually have a new phone. And I'm recording on my new phone right now, and I got my new phone today because I thought it would take time for me to get a new phone, but it didn't really take that much time. So basically, what I'm gonna be doing is, if you're on my TikTok page, you probably already seen it. I uploaded a video telling you guys to follow me on my new TikTok page because I couldn't log into my old TikTok page or my current one with my new phone right here. So I had to make a new TikTok page, and I'm going to be linking that one up to my other one. I'll be uploading the same type of content I do on my original one, so it'll basically just be 2 channels you guys can go back and forth to. I'll mainly be uploading, pretty much edits and also stop motion progress videos on my new TikTok page, and I still will be uploading action figure comedy on my TikTok page and also on my YouTube. So guys, basically, by the time I can't really give a release date just yet on my new series, Marvel House, because it's gonna at least be like 10 or at least 10 or 5 minutes long. Now, basically, let's get into it, guys. Basically, this is what if Callum had the Omnitrix. This was if Callum was, Kryptonian. This changes the story and the plot and how Callum actually will actually trigger his Kryptonian abilities instead of magic. So Callum will still be able to learn magic. He'll still be able to use the same amount of magic Callum would use, but it will be weakened because his Kryptonian body would reject the magic for some reason. So basically, Callum would still be able to use magic, but it would just be automatically weaker, even though magic, if he uses a magic that's supposed to be super strong, it might just be normal power and weak. Because in this universe, Kryptonians don't have really the stamina to make or use magic. So basically, in this universe, Kryptonians are going to be a little bit tweaked. Now, let's say in this new world, Kryptonians can absorb solar radiation from a yellow sun from Earth and get superhuman abilities like flight, laser vision, X-ray vision, superhuman strength, agility, speed, all the other stuff. No, not agility, but super strength and super speed, stuff like that. But also, Callum would have pretty much a weakened state of, Kryptonian cells. Now, in this universe, this universe is filled with magic, meaning that this would be triggered or stunning Callum's abilities or his superhuman abilities as a Kryptonian. Now, when Callum starts reaching the age that he is in canon in the original series, then his Kryptonian abilities will start manifesting in strange ways. Like, I don't know, sneezing ice or pretty much coughing up ice ice blocks, because if you know his ice breath, or just when he blinks, or when his eyes get really dry, he just shoots laser out of his eyes. So basically, it's just gonna be random ways he's gonna unlock his Kryptonian abilities. Now he's gonna have all the normal abilities that Superman and Kryptonians have, because there's a lot of them, and he should. And like, if you don't know them, I'm probably just gonna list them out for the what if. And basically, guys, Callum is also going to have, a slight extra ability, but I'm not gonna get into that just yet. But basically, Callum would be very well raised, kind of the same. Now, Callum would still be adopted, like you know, like how was it? Superman would. So Callum would land about a couple of miles into the forest, making a huge impact. And then the king So basically, Callum's mother would actually come across this after she about to leave the kingdom for a little while. Now she would come across about this and see a baby in a middle, pretty much spear or ship. Now they would tell the guards to pretty much pick it up and drag it back to the kingdom, and pretty much they found out a way because Callum was actually a newborn. In this universe, Callum would be basically replacing Kyle, but actually, Callum would still look the same, and nothing would really change. But let's say Callum would be the same. I was originally gonna give Callum black hair, like Superman, but I just didn't want to change his looks that much. So basically, Callum would be raised the same. Basically, his parents just thinking that he would be a blessing from the gods or whatever. Because Callum came straight from the sky and landed right in front of them. So basically, well, never landed in front of them. It was just in their way when they were about to leave the kingdom for a little while. So basically, they took Callum in because Callum was actually sent off a Kryptonian, a Krypton, pretty much only like 6 days after he was born. So it was very quick how, Callum was sent to Earth. Since Callum was only on Krypton for about like 6 days, he wouldn't be cultured with Krypton. But also, Krypton would actually still have the Fortress of Solitude in the Callum universe, or in the Prince Dragon universe, and Callum will eventually come across that place doing the whole entire ice scene between pretty much his little brother and also, you know, hit the elf girl, and also, the egg, how the egg started dying, and the egg started dying or becoming weaker, all that other stuff. So basically, let's just get into it. So Callum would still be adopted. Well, he wouldn't be adopted, but Callum would be adopted by his original real parents, and he would have been raised all the same. His life would go exactly the same, all up until the original series timeline started, doing episode 1. Now, during episode 1, Callum started to experience his Kryptonian abilities in strange ways. That morning, Callum woke up and was feeling kind of strange. Callum looked at the sun and felt very powerful. Every time Callum woke up, looking out of the mirror, seeing his body, how it got just a little bit like an inch taller, and also he's pretty much gained a lot of muscle. Now, not like beefy or anything. He's just like Spider-Man athletic swimmer type muscly. Not like super big, not super noticeable, but like he has like a small six pack or something. So basically, Callum was confused. Now he heard a knock at the door, and that was his little brother. Now, pretty much Callum would go on his day like an original, and we get skipped to sword training between basically the pretty much the knight and Callum. Now, the knight would be going on about how you're step prince and you should know how to do apprentice stuff like sword fight and stuff like that. So they would be fighting and training until, his first love interest with the person that he was told that he kind of likes. So he would be fighting. So they would be fighting and sparring, pretty much throwing swords and slashes. When Callum gets a little angry after losing, pretty much throwing a slash, and with a knight getting hit in the stomach by him getting sent about 6 feet up in the air and 6 feet away from, Callum. But the guards were pretty confused, and some of the people out of the kingdom, or some people that saw this, were very impressed at Callum's strength. Now, Callum was looking at his hand, being very confused, seeing that the stick was completely broken and shattered, and it was just shards of wood in his hands. But Callum was confused because it was not a single scratch on his hands, but it was scratches on his gloves and stuff. So Callum pretty much was confused, but just walked off after the knight started shrugging and moaning because, not really moaning, he was just grunting because he felt a lot of pain. And if Callum hit any harder, he would have actually, cut the, knight in half with a wooden sword, because I'm pretty sure Superman could, slash a wooden sword that fast to, slash through somebody's body. But basically, the knight got back up with a huge or like a really long bruise against his stomach. Now, Callum would have been in the library at this point, and we would be skipping to the library scene between Callum and his first love interest. So basically, now Callum would have still been told by the king or by his stepfather that he was going to go to the Winter Lodge for a little while, because the kingdom would still be told by the pretty much guard or knight that got away from the elf that let him go. Pretty much they told the king. The king was about to send the boys away, or was giving them the same type of conversation like original, when Callum still had his glove ripped off because he broke it or he ripped it for some unknown reason. Callum just trying to shrug it off, not really showing any type of whatever, not really showing that he was confused or frightened of what he's done. Basically, the knight would have not told anybody, but his sister would have still known about him getting hit upside the chest or in the stomach so hard from just a scrawny-looking kid. But basically, Callum would have been walking around telling pretty much the knight, I want to go with you. Pretty much the knight was kind of biased and also didn't want to take him with him because, he was the prince and also he didn't have any fighting skills, but also because he hit him really hard and he didn't like that. But he was actually contemplating to actually let him go because he showed a great amount of strength. But yet again, he told him that he was wearing the wrong armor, and then, Callum tripped and all other stuff. Basically, we get switched back to the Dark Elves, or the Moon Elves, and they would be binding themselves to take down the princes in the kingdom. Now we get switched back to Callum's younger brother, and he would be playing with, with bait. So basically, they would be arguing about how, we gotta get ready and blah blah blah. We still had the same conversation with pretty much the knight taking the moth that his father gave him, the magical moth that would sense moon energy from the dark, pretty much moon elves, leading them to the moon elves, them looking around, seeing that they're not here. Now, basically, the elf was still been accused and also would have been pretty much reprimanded because they found out and they know that she let one go. So it gets switched off, and that's the ending of episode 1. Now it gets switched back to episode 2. We get switched back to Callum, and basically Callum going and re-switching to Callum's whole situation back to present time with the pretty much him being in the library looking through the book. Now he was still, cross paths with his first love interest. He gets told about the Primal Stone, and about how he uses one of the 6 prime elements or sources of magic. Now, he would have asked what was in it, and she would have answered a storm. Callum would have been talking to her, and eventually he would have said, switch places because I don't want a sword fight and I want to learn magic. But basically, she would have gotten the same idea and would have pretty much acted the same type of quirky way and ran off from Callum. We get switched to the king and his friend, or the knight. The knight and Callum's love interest's father having a conversation with the king about all of the black magic and everything. Basically, Callum would have been interrupted by one of the guards telling him that pretty much the king wants to see him. Basically, Callum would have said, yeah, pretty much just being, kind of suspicious, but the guard not really thinking of it. We get switched back to, so basically, Callum would have met up with the king. Now, basically, Rayla would be on her way to the kingdom and try and sneak into the castle. Now, for Callum's part of the story, Callum would be still meeting up with his father, or his stepfather, or who would be called the king right now. Basically, he would have been calling him, been talking to him about the whole entire kingdom situation and how it's going under wraps. And he would hug Callum one last time. Now, Callum would have been walking down the hallways, and we'd be switched back to Rayla. Rayla would have been walking, and where would be walking? She would have been climbing up the castle, and she would eventually come across pretty much Callum, trying to stop Callum and take him under, or trying to make sure, Callum leads her to the king or the prince. Now, basically, Callum said, I don't know, I'm pretty much tricking her the same way, but pretty much Callum running away. Now, Callum would have been running away, telling the guards that she's after me. Pretty much Callum picking up speed incredibly fast after he passed the guards. Callum being kind of confused. Callum running at super speeds. Callum being confused, but he would hit his head up against one of the walls or up against one of the statues, disorientating him, pretty much making him trip the same way or the same area where he fell and he was cornered by Rayla. Rayla told him where's the prince, and pretty much he would say that he was, the prince. Well, he is a prince, but he was, he was flying in with his little brother. But basically, we can switch back to the king and the warlocks, or the pretty much wizard situation, and we get switched off of that because now that wouldn't really change. Basically, Rayla would ask more, but his little brother would interrupt, saying that I am Prince, Ezreal. Basically, Callum would be kind of shaken by this, but pretty much Ezreal would have gotten confused, but also Callum would actually disorientate, pretty much running over to Rayla trying to slash Callum with his blade, but seeing her blade bounce off of Callum's body like nothing. Callum being super confused, but Callum grabbed her, throwing her away. But Callum seeing that he threw her incredibly far, almost out the room. Callum said to go now, and they started running down pretty much the hidden way. And they started running and running and running, but they were stopped. And pretty much Israel showed him a secret entrance and showed him down to a secret basement that he found. Now, Rayla followed them down, and pretty much Ezreal was kind of confused how you got in. She said, I just pressed all the things that had, sticky handprints on them, and I opened this thing. So basically, she said to pretty much hand over the prince now, and I won't, hurt you. At least not much. And basically, she would have still been brushing out the fact that, she tried to slash at Callum, but the blade bounced off of him like nothing, but her blade getting slightly bent and out of shape. And basically, Callum and them would have still discovered the dragon egg, and they would be switched to credits, and then we can switch to episode 3. So guys, we can switch to episode 3, where the king is getting ready for battle, and for the elves to show up. Now basically, him and pretty much pretty much Callum's first love interest, or whatever, his crush or whatever. Basically, she would be talking to her father, and he would be telling her about the king and how we were brothers or best friends. Now, basically, pretty much, Callum's first love interest. I really don't even know her name, but basically, she would be going up and pretty much going down and following them through the hidden entrance to the picture. Now they would be inspecting the egg, pretty much seeing that it was a dragon egg. Now Callum would have looked back, seeing that Claudia. Yeah, guys, I went on Google and I looked up her name, Claudia. So basically, Claudia would have been telling them to step far away from the elf and to give me the egg. Now basically, Claudia would have been hearing the pleads from pretty much Callum telling her to, stop. Now pretty much Claudia was about to shoot a lightning bolt, but in this cannon, Callum would actually be farther away. So Callum wouldn't have the opportunity to grab the spear or the pretty much glass orb out of Claudia's hand. or the stone. So basically, he would have taken a blast from full strength, trying to save the egg and his brother. Now he would have got the full blast, getting shocked in the chest, but looking at his body, seeing that it was still no, so Callum would have been blasted away, but Callum would have gotten up, seeing that he wasn't that badly injured, but his clothes were, blasted away. Now, originally I was gonna say, Callum didn't feel anything, but yet again, this is magic, so Callum would be vulnerable because Kryptonians are vulnerable to magic. Now, Callum would have gotten up, coughing a little bit, coughing up some blood. Pretty much, Callum getting up, looking around, seeing that Claudia was confused. And basically, Callum ran over to Claudia in seconds. Basically, him using a little of his Kryptonian speed. Callum not knowing what he was doing, but just going with the flow. Callum grabbing the stone or the orb out of Claudia's hand. Claudia being kind of disoriented and very confused on how Callum is moving this fast. Now Callum would have still trapped her, pinning some pretty much what was it? Chains around her arm, pretty much saying, "Stay here, I don't want to hurt you." Now they would run off. The elf Israel and Callum would have been running off. Now they would have been running off after pretty much Claudia makes a spell to send the Shadow Hounds or whatever she was sending to after Callum and Israel and the elf. Now basically they would have been chased down. Rayla. They would have been chased down. And basically Callum, in that short moment, he was about to use magic, but he saw his eyes started to hurt profusely. Then the pain went away and he opened his eyes. And what he saw was just red. And then out of nowhere, a huge blast of pretty much red energy came out of Callum's eyes. Basically him blasting away the shadow dogs like nothing. But basically Rayla and also Israel were super confused on how he did that. And they said, "Is that magic?" And Callum said, "I didn't use the spear. I didn't use the orb, so it must not have been magic." But Callum was shortly stopped and interrupted. And pretty much Rayla says, "We gotta get on the move. And we gotta show everybody the egg so we can end this war." Now, pretty much we'll switch back to the king's perspective, and we're gonna just skip through that because nothing really changed. Now, Callum and Rayla and pretty much Israel will be walking down the tunnels. Pretty much Rayla asking for the egg, but also Callum saying, "You better not reach that egg before I have to, hurt you." Pretty much Callum being kind of confident in himself now because he's shown a lot of power. Callum flashing back through his memories, seeing this morning that he had more muscle mass. Also, Callum felt a lot stronger that morning. Callum also felt faster, and he ran that fast in super speed levels. He also took a lightning blast like a champ when any normal person would get, very injured. But with Kryptonians, they are slightly vulnerable to magic, but yet again, they still get hurt by magic. Basically, Callum would have been trying to think more and more on how he got these abilities. Now, Callum not knowing that he was adopted, he wouldn't know that he was, adopted. So he would find out doing the, pretty much iceberg episode or the other episode, whatever, episode 4, I think. So basically, Callum would have been episode 5, maybe. So basically, Callum and Rayla would have been pretty much talking, and Callum would have been kind of confused, watching the situation, seeing that Rayla was asking for the egg, but pretty much Israel said, "I will hold on to it." Pretty much them trying to get it towards the elves or the king so they can stop the war. Now basically the king would have still talked down to pretty much Claudia's father, and they would still have the same conversation like in canon. Now they would switch back to Rayla, and pretty much Rayla would be meeting up with pretty much her elf brethren, or her elf pretty much leader. Now he would have been telling her to, "Why are you here?" Blah blah blah. Pretty much him being stopped and having the same conversation, them showing the egg. Now pretty much he would say that this doesn't change that much. Pretty much Rayla saying it changes everything. Pretty much Rayla would have still get into fight or was about to fight the pretty much, powered up elf brethren. But Callum stopped her, saying that you need to go now. Pretty much Rayla being kind of confused, saying that I don't know what you are, I don't know what you can do, but this is my fight. Pretty much Callum saying to her to go now. Pretty much Callum being a little bit taller, being about the same height as her. Now Callum would have looked into her eyes, and he would see that pretty much she will shut a moment with, Callum. But Callum brushed it off, saying to go. Callum taking off his jacket and pretty much showing this, and with his fingers gloves. Now Callum would have looked at the elf, saying, let's see what I can do. Now Callum would have been running towards the elf, pretty much Callum being a little bit weakened because Callum hasn't absorbed that much radiation. He's absorbed a lot since he's been born, but it hasn't activated his powers yet. It's just he's only had radiation since the day. So his powers are slightly weakened. He just needs more radiation over the time to absorb and, become a strong Superman. But now Callum hasn't, enhanced all of his abilities. He only has super speed, laser vision, and superhuman strength and vulnerability so far. Now, basically, I will be delaying other abilities that Callum would get, and flight would be the last ability Callum would get, because that would just make Callum way OP, because he'll just fly out of any situation and just fly down and punch some folks in the face. Now, basically, Callum would have looked at the elf, saying, let's do this. Callum would have charged towards the elf, and we would be skipped to pretty much Claudia trying to escape. And Claudia would escape, pretty much the, what was it? Rayla actually hiding Israel in the haystack, but also her pretty much watching the fight from a distance, alongside another bridge. Now she would have seen the elf getting thrown through pillar to multiple walls and pretty much castle, interior. Pretty much Callum jumping to wall, being kind of confused that Callum was jumping pretty much a single bound around the whole castle. Callum was completely, Callum was completely obliterating this man's. Like, he was just killing him right now. He was throwing him through buildings or pillars, pretty much punching him with so much strength. Pretty much Callum being kind of, confused at how strong he was. Callum got hit with a blade, but since they were filled by moon magic or whatever, Callum was slightly vulnerable towards the elf. Basically, him getting cut and slashed. Now, Callum would have dodged more and more attacks, him shooting laser blast at the, pretty much, elf. Now, Callum would have looked at his eyes, seeing that they're getting kind of weakened and his eyes getting kind of dry. Pretty much Callum not having enough radiation to really get, Kryptonian or Superman style on this man's. Now, basically, Callum would have gotten pretty much jumped more and more. Pretty much the elf about to finish it, but Rayla is jumping in, taking the fight, and taking over the fight. Now, she would have started fighting the elf like originally, going around the pretty much castle, fighting left and right. Now, Callum would have ran off, and pretty much he would have looked around, and his eyes would have been twitching. He would have seen to the castle, seeing and hearing his brother's heartbeat. And pretty much Callum would stop. Pretty much Callum, he yelling out in pain. And Rayla would be pretty confused. And both of them would look at Callum, hearing Callum yell out in pain, Callum punching the floor underneath him, cracking the brick. Pretty much Callum's senses kicking in. His Kryptonian super senses. His super sense of smell, sight, and hearing. And also his X-ray vision kicked in. Callum started looking around buildings, looking through guards, skeletons, and Rayla and the elf skeleton. Pretty much him yelling out in pain, and him being super, in pain, because he was hearing everything. He was hearing voices, birds chirping, grass, water, everywhere. He was being flooded with senses unbelievable, overriding his pretty much brain, making him feel like making him feel like he literally went through HE double hockey stick and back. pretty much Callum was yelling out in pain more and more. Eventually, Callum punched himself upside the head, trying to stop the pain. Callum eventually calmed down, with him looking around, and the senses started to die down. Now, since Callum was around magic, his powers would have been slightly weakened. Basically, Callum's senses going down just enough so Callum could get away, and Callum's senses were delayed just a little, for just a few longer, so he could, function normally. Now, Callum ran off, knowing where his brother was, seeing that he was safe, and him running to the kingdom, or the pretty much king's front room or door. Now, pretty much the knight that he was fighting in the first place, Claudia's brother, pretty much he would have told him, Step Prince, you better get back. Pretty much Callum getting kind of angry at this, being through a lot of pain. Pretty much him grabbing the knight from the pretty much throat, saying to let me in now. His eyes started to glow. The prince was confused, but pretty much he was stopped when his senses started kicking in and him going into pain. Now, it would have switched back and forth, his senses going out, back and forth. Now, pretty much, Claudia's father would have stepped out of the king's room, pretty much stopping Callum. Now, Callum would have gotten grabbed by the pretty much guards, but Callum breaking out of the guards' grasp really quickly, pretty much sending them flying through the room. Pretty much Callum out to run off or straight up just, drop kick or punch, Claudia's father. Claudia's father used magic on Callum. Pretty much Callum getting his voice stolen. Now, Callum was kind of confused by this, and we get switched to Rayla on her shadow form, pretty much fighting the elf. Now, Rayla would have went back to, Israel, pretty much saying, you really gotta, that bait, that thing you call bait isn't really, a hiding type of, material. So basically, you get switched back to Rayla, pretty much Callum and Claudia's father arguing, while him just talking down to Callum. Pretty much, the lights would get switched off, or they switched off when the elves started to attack. The elves started to attack when pretty much Callum's senses stepping back in and him going into pain. Callum started yelling out in pain, punching the floor. Pretty much, elf pretty much throwing an arrow towards his way, trying to shut him up. Now, Callum would have broken the, pretty much arrow, and the arrow just snapping off of, snapping on impact to Callum's skin, because, the arrows aren't magic, and, any other means to mortal end isn't really, to comply with Callum. Now, Callum would have got him back up, still in this type of vest, type of outfit. Pretty much Callum yelling out in frustration, but nothing coming out, but some sort of, ice coming out. But it wouldn't be strong enough, so Callum wouldn't have been, unlocking his ice breath yet. Basically, Callum would have ran off. Basically, him looking around, his senses still going out of whack, him still being in pain. Now, pretty much, Claudia's father would have got knocked off, and pretty much Callum's voice would have still been pretty much returned to him. Callum would have ran off, pretty much trying to get away from the noise and the swords clanking, pretty much them being 1,000 times louder, pretty much feeling like they're right up against his ears. Pretty much Callum would have ran out there, and Callum would have ran back to Rayla, and Israel, basically them getting ready to get off and on their journey. Now they left the castle, pretty much Callum trying one last time to hone his senses, him still being in pain, pretty much him looking back, pretty much seeing that, pretty much Callum looking back, pretty much Callum being homing his senses one last time, him closing his eyes, him opening them, seeing through the castle with his X-ray vision, not being able to see through the king's room, because for some reason the king's room's stopped by lead. So basically, Callum would have seen the battle go on, and then he would finally, well, semi-stop his senses enough so he can actually, well, get on with his journey. Now, they would have left the castle, basically, the elf that was fighting against, the king, pretty much sending off an arrow to pretty much say that, he's done all he can do. But basically, he would have been, took under, surveillance or be captured. Basically, us being switched back to Rayla, and pretty much Rayla trying to get the thing off or the bind off of her wrist. Now she would have talked to Callum and Israel, and they would go on to their journey. Now we get switched off there, and I'm gonna actually leave it off here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Before I go, guys, I will be uploading What If Deku Was a Lichen tomorrow because, well, I have a lot of free time because after my 2 vacations I had, I got 28 days left of summer, so I'm going to try to upload that stop motion. Now tomorrow, I'm probably not even gonna act on my stop motion because I'm probably gonna be really tired that day, and the most thing I'm gonna be possibly gonna be able to do is probably maybe like a short TikTok collab or TikTok comedy video with my action figures. And also, I will be uploading What If Deku Was Like in tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe like two days later. So guys, I hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. And as always, guys, you can request anything that you set your mind to. See you guys later. Bye. Jesus.